fall equinox is all about a time of timeline shifting, right? We're moving into a new season. On the other part of the world, they're also moving into their spring equinox. So we have the fall, we have the spring, we have where both of these nodes are meeting to where we have this rebirth energy here right now. And also having the polar opposites between the spring and the fall, it also really brings this balance between the feminine and the masculine energy as well. So when you can start to plug into some of these more cosmic dates, right? 12/12, 11/11, winter solstice, spring, summer, there's equinoxes. You can be more supported through tapping into the energy that has more of a charge to it to assist you in the co-creation process with pursuing your dreams and your goals. So this is where our ancestors really knew to look to nature, and they understood that everything had a rhythm and a cycle to it. And today we're going to be reflecting on conscious endings, right? Like we have to be able to be in a position to admit what we're ready to let go of in order to even have the space to bring anything else in. So this fall equinox is really about choosing the trajectory for the next 3 months, for even the years to come. So this is really about cleaning up your own inner house so that you can really refine the energy that you're going to choose to walk moving forward during this season, which there might be resistance that comes up. There may be things to come up for you to pause, step back, reflect, and gain a different perspective, especially if you're finding an area that you're having a tug of war in. So, we're all here, right, to let go of something in order to grow into that next layer of self-mastery within what it is that you dare to create from a heart level. So it very much is about getting embodied in the journey and embracing the experience for what it is and what's to come. So, there is going to be times where in transitions, there might be a shadow, right? You might meet that other part of yourself. And it's like, is it going to be in those moments where you're going to run or fight it or freeze? And this is where you're going to be able to gather the resources and the tools you need to allow yourself to walk in a different way of being in relationship with yourself. And ultimately, that relationship's going to reflect out into all of your other relationships and projects that you're putting your focus and your energy into. So it is really important to be mindful of what you give your mindset and your energy and your focus to right now, because it really does, at the end of the day, come down to a matter of perspective. Whatever experience you decide to label something is going to be the exact experience that you're going to create. And sometimes it's a lot to wrap our head around, especially we're moving into the Scorpio energy, right? And that's a lot of the shadow and more of this wild-like energy, this death and rebirth energy of the ego. So you may find yourself feeling pressured or feeling triggered, but those moments are opportunities for you to go even more inward so that you can understand what role you're playing in the experience. So it's not about going inward and shaming and blaming yourself and giving the inner critic the floor. Allow the inner critic to have the space that it needs for you to hold it in a way that it needs to be held for you to truly understand what you're worried from, what you're trying to protect yourself from, so that when you find yourself having those patterns of maybe that lead to sabotaging your success, you can have more awareness in redirecting the energy. A lot of the times we want to be all the way over here in our journey, but it really is about getting embodied and being here and what this season has for you. So the fall equinox is really about tending to that harvest that you wish to reap come summertime again, right? And this is the time where we are gathering those seeds, right? So this is your time for your intentions to be that seed that you're planting in your heart so that you can hold the focus, exercise the patience, give yourself the grace, and soften along the way and not take your goals in life too seriously. Like the thing is, when it comes to really stepping into a higher vision, is making a commitment to let go of the areas that you're finding yourself surviving in, right? And you know what those areas are where you're numbing out, where you're not having integrity, where you're not leading with authenticity. These are the areas that are really important to take ownership in, not from a place of blame or shame or fearing it, right? Really allowing yourself to shed those old layers. Because this next month, with the equinox holding us, we're going to be going through the transit of the equinox into the beginning of November. So this is a time for you to really hold yourself so that you can shed and let go of the worries, the fears, the patterns, the habits, the beliefs, right? Like we're all of the layers of the mental, emotional, physical, and then ultimately that brings us back to our spiritual health and well-being. Each of us are spiritually healthy and wealthy. It's just up to how much are we in relationship with that higher self, the aspect of ourself, and how devoted are we to living from a place of self-love and honoring that part of ourself, which means it's not always going to be easy, but if you are able to sit with the discomfort long enough, you can come out on the other side and witness the resilience and the strength of what you're ultimately growing through. And to really live and anchor heaven on earth, it's not about going somewhere else. It's about it coming back to your matter of perspective. And what programs are you choosing? Are you choosing the ones that you've experienced through life's trials and tribulations, maybe patterns that were programmed through you in your family lineage or through society? Are you holding on to projections of what others believe is possible or isn't possible? Or are you holding on to past experiences of what other people think of you? Like we hold on to all of these exterior layers and then we grasp to something for it to define who we are and if we're enough and how we're going to move forward owning our worth in this world. And it's like, can you let all of that go and shed all of that so that you can really activate and align with what your heart's truth is? Right. So this is about really being able to understand the ability to discern and understand the fine frequency of how you're communicating to yourself. Because when you can start to let go of the projections that we also throw, right? The doubt, the worry, the inability to feel understood or heard or seen. These are all ways that we communicate where we don't even realize that we're blocking ourselves. And yeah, it might be a really valid true experience in this moment, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it needs to stay your truth. Because what happens is when we really have a belief, we continue to find ways to perpetuate and validate that experience over and over and over again, and then we strengthen it. We're trying to release something, and then we're not also staying in that vibration of gratitude, and we're shedding and letting something go, and we're only focusing on the lack and the scarcity of not having it. That's the exact vibration that you're still putting out is I don't have it. I don't have it. Why not? How? When? And it's like surrendering to all of that and like really cultivating a deep sense of faith and belief within yourself. And whatever you attach that word faith to, it can be intention, for me, it's God, it can be creator, universal energy flow, whatever is that source line for your higher self. And right, surrendering your will to the divine will, right? If this is really in service for my highest good, right? Why would you be cut off from the tapestry of life? So this is where you get to surrender to the expectations and the pressure that we put upon ourselves so that you can really lead with trust over worry. Because if you're making choices from worrying versus making choices from trust and joy, what experience are you going to experience, right? As we mentioned, everything is a mirror. So really allowing yourself, you could feel the fear in your choices, but can you still feel expanded enough in that fear to say, hey, I deserve this and I'm claiming this. I'm willing to do what I get to do to make this happen. I'm showing up. Right. And it's not really about trying to figure out every single step when you're letting things go, but it's about reaching what is within your reach, what is already tangible, what can you touch, instead of trying to package the perfect condition to then go and reach for it. So when we shed and let go, it's important that when you are creating that space, that you're filling it up with a new experience, and an experience is whatever gets you in that embodied emotion of what it is that success in your vision looks like. Because when you release and let go, you're meant to be filling yourself back up in that cup with those feelings, living that felt sensation today, right? So sometimes it is going to look like doing the thing that the mind cannot grasp and understand. But are you willing to stretch beyond what the mind believes is possible when you feel that it actually is coming from your heart? So when you can start to pause and discern and identify where and how you're making your choices, what do you want to let go of? What choices keep you in a roundabout cycle? Because when your thoughts, your actions, and your beliefs are not in the same direction, you're going to have more of that karmic cause and effect. It's going to be putting out a different type of ripple of where you're still in a place to have to learn the lesson. But when you start to sit down with yourself and create space to consciously release and let go of things, you always want to bless and release and bring the gratitude for whatever that situation has offered you from a perspective. But we have to get above the situation. And that's why creating a sacred space for you to shed, for you to let go, for you to do the self-study and the inventory. A lot of times we don't want to sit with ourselves. It's hard to sit and be quiet. There's a lot of demands that the mind has. But until you integrate it, it's not lived wisdom, and it's your unique wisdom and your self-expression that's going to pave out your own life journey. So it's not so much looking to the outside world to tell you what you need to do, but allowing the outside world reflect to you what do you get to do for yourself and take ownership with, and then lead with that. So it's not always asking people for all the answers. Can you sit down with that discomfort and ask yourself? Because your heart has all the answers and the solution there. But a lot of the times we're outside of ourselves. So when you are releasing and letting go, you want to fill yourself up with love. You want to fill yourself up with a higher vibration. It's not judging that other vibration, right? Duality is inevitable. Can you come to these things that you're choosing to release from a neutral perspective? Because when we can come from a place that's neutral, we're not making it this big dramatic thing, and then all of a sudden it's more than what it actually really is, where we start to have all of our wheels spinning with all of the assumptions and the dialogue that can start happening. There's like 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. So the more that you slow down and you notice, and in yoga it's called sadhyaya, you do the self-study, you can start to see what thought patterns are creating that ripple effect, right? Like someone who's per se a chronic procrastinator. I'm always such a procrastinator. Well, the more that you keep saying that, you're going to keep being a procrastinator. Look at the vibration of your words. So when you are releasing and letting go, what are you calling in, right? So you want to will it, you want to call it in as if you've already received it, right? Instead of saying I'm a procrastinator, I'm motivated and focused on my top goals, right? And like maybe some of the things that someone's procrastinating on, maybe those aren't the top priorities to do, but you overdid your list to where when you can dial in and know what are my main key players on a weekly, monthly, yearly basis, you can adapt and go with the flow and not be so hard on yourself when you don't do everything that you think that you should have done or that you need to be doing. So communication is a really big process of the shedding and the releasing and the letting go, because our words are exactly what put us right back into that energy of picking it up. Once you can find ways of showing up from a place of being an embodied action, things have a different type of ease to it, even when it's hard. Life's not always going to be easy, but it's in those moments when you're letting go, that's when you're really getting polished and primed for fresh new energy, because you now know what you don't want, which means you have the opportunity to also acknowledge and witness what you do want, which means with working with this energy with the fall equinox, this is all about timeline shifting, right? This is all about accessing your soul's blueprint. And accessing your soul's blueprint is about really allowing all of yourself to be fully here, present, and now. Because when we experience trauma or we experience things that were just hectic and chaotic and big pivotal moments, it starts to break off and fragment parts of our soul light to protect ourselves. We start to close our heart off. We start to store these emotions in the body. And a lot of people have expressed like, oh, my memory is so poor, right? And this is what trauma and what holding on to emotions can do is it can disorganize the memory. It can cause brain fog. It can cause an inability to focus. So the more that you call in and reconnect to your heart-centered self, your higher self, your soul self, eventually you'll be able to have a different relationship with your ability to focus and slow down and be more grounded in the here and now, not in the past, not in the future, right? And being able to really walk in this timeline forward. So letting go is a really powerful process because we can't let anything new in if there isn't any space to receive it. So gonna feel that contraction. There is a contraction before an expansion always. But if you're not willing to breathe through the contraction, right, and you shut down and you close back off again, you're going to have to go back through that threshold window again until you fully allow that experience to work its course through you, right? So if you really are desiring to giving birth to anchoring what thriving is to you in the here and now, you most certainly have to understand and accept that duality is going to be an inevitable part of the process here, and that life is very much like climbing those mountains and sculpting that iceberg. And even looking to the trees right now, like seeing the leaves changing their colors reminds me that death can be a beautiful process, right? Like look at how gorgeous and rich the yellow and red leaves are. But it's the mind, right, that wants to hold on to what's familiar because it's afraid of the change. So if you're someone who's afraid of change, identify what was your relationship like with change. When you find yourself not being able to move through that contraction, what is your relationship like when you are feeling challenged? Do you freeze? Do you flight? Do you shut down? The more that you start to understand your nervous system, that's where you're going to be able to regulate that mind-body connection and get those thoughts and actions flowing together, which then with residual consistency will lead to creating new beliefs, which then ultimately will allow you to continue to walk down the path of what really is in service for your success. I had a mentor tell me years ago one time, and he always said the most simplest things. You already are a success. Really? Okay. But I always took that of like, even when I was having a really crappy day, I was like, I already am a success. You showing up and making this commitment right here shows your level of dedication and devotion that you have for yourself and your goals. And it requires discipline along the way too. Being able to be focused comes from having a relationship with discipline. And I look at discipline as an opportunity to really be devoted to what you're choosing, right? So when you know that you're coming from love, it's going to lift you up higher when you are feeling challenged, to where you might feel a little defeated or a little tired or maybe confused at certain moments. But if you just hold the focus a little bit longer, you can come out and be on the other end of that silver lining. So this is where the blessing and the releasing is a really important part, because gratitude is the fastest way to change and shift your perspective and the vibration that you're tuning into. Everything has a program, just like you're changing a television channel, right? There's a program there. So what program are you choosing to tune into? So really understanding the subtle art of discernment. And, as you move through this process, you can experience the ease and the contentment. It just matters, what belief system are you going to choose while you sculpt your iceberg?